So we've obviously seen a lot of changes with the Druid. We're seeing more changes here with this playtest. Let's dive into that and the subclasses.
So there is a lot to ingest and enjoy in this version of the Druid. So we took in all of the feedback from the previous Druid. You and I talked in another video about the direction we were likely to go in with the next Druid, and that Druid is here.
Right.
So this Druid has new features, a new version of Wild Shape, an entirely new subclass, another subclass, two other subclasses that are entirely redesigned.
Yeah.
So the Druid has a lot of goodies here. That starts with a brand new feature called Primal Order at first level. This is akin to the Cleric's Divine Order, where now the Druid gets to decide if they want better armor at first level, or if they would like to lean more onto the magical side of their character. That armor choice becomes especially significant if you decide to play a Circle of the Moon Druid, because in the new Circle of the Moon Druid, you have the option when you're in Wild Shape to use either your AC or the beast's AC, whichever is higher. And so we wanted to build into the base class the ability for a Druid, whether they have the Circle of the Moon or one of the other subclasses, the ability to be more resilient if they decide to be in melee. In contrast, we also wanted other Druids, if they want to emphasize their nature spellcasting, to be able to choose that option in Primal Order that gives them an additional cantrip and also gives them a bonus on their their ability checks rather, that use the nature skill. We also have in the Druid a brand new feature called Elemental Fury, which allows the Druid to enhance either the damage of their cantrips or the damage of their melee attacks, including melee attacks in Wild Shape. And one of the things that we are exploring throughout this version of the Druid is fully supporting either the Wild Shape focused Druid or the spellcasting focused Druid. And so you're going to find throughout this version of the Druid, that is a recurring theme, that you get to decide as a Druid player what you want to focus on. That's why we also introduce in this version of the class a sort of limited ability to turn Wild Shape uses into spell slots and spell slots into Wild Shape uses. So that, again, let's say you're a spellcasting focused Druid and like, I don't need all these Wild Shape uses.
Right.
You instead could create a spell slot. And we also give you ways to use your Wild Shape uses in your subclasses, other than Circle of the Moon, that are not about turning into a beast. This is a design theme we've been exploring for years in the Druid. It's something that you can see in the Druid subclasses in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, of using Wild Shape uses to do something other than turning into a beast. So there's a whole lot more of that here. Wild Shape has been redesigned. Looking at the playtest feedback, it was clear that even though many people loved the new version of the Druid that appeared in the previous Druid playtest, there were more people who wanted the version of Wild Shape that they had in 2014. So what we've done is we've taken the 2014 version of Wild Shape and we've refined it. The main refinements are, one, you no longer get hit points from the forms that you turn into, because as we've discussed before, getting all those extra hit points ended up causing the Druid, especially at high level, to have a resilience that the rest of the game's math didn't know what to do with.
Right.
The Druid was really overtuned. But fear not, the Circle of the Moon, though, in this new version, does get temporary hit points when they turn into a Wild Shape form. Now, what all Druids now get, though, even though they're not getting hit points from the forms, is we have removed the detail from 2014 that caused you to be knocked out of a wild shape form after taking an amount of damage equal to the creature's hit points. What this means is you can now stay in your wild shape form until you, the druid, drop to 0 hit points. And this is going to allow druids, in many cases, to stay in wild shape form longer than they ever could in the 2014 version. Except for, again, some high-level cases where they were getting so many extra hit points. This is a case of, I think, a really nice balance being struck of, sure, you're not going to have sort of a runaway amount of hit points anymore.
Right.
But you will often be able to stay in wild shape longer than you ever could before. We've also made it so that turning into your beast form with wild shape is now a bonus action for all druids, not just Circle of the Moon. This is going to make it so that wild shape has a tactical utility for all druids. You might even be a spellcasting focused druid, but because wild shape is now a bonus action, you might decide that in the middle of a fight, if you're high enough level to turn into a flying beast, I'm going to quickly turn into a flying beast, get to the other side of that chasm, turn back into a druid and cast a spell from over there. So we're finding in our playtests that just that change of making wild shape a bonus action for all druids really opens up the tactical landscape for the class in a really fun way. We've also made it so that druids can continue now to talk in wild shape form. So there are a number of really nice enhancements to the 2014 wild shape that appears here. Finally, because we do want to control how many beast forms are available to a druid, rather than the DM having to face a druid who could turn into any CR appropriate beast that has appeared anywhere in the game, a druid is now required to essentially prepare a number of beast forms each day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the number you can prepare, sort of like a number of spells, will increase as you go up in level. It starts at 3. So when you start out, you will have 3 forms that you can prepare. Every time you finish a long rest, you can change that list. What this allows a group to do is to know what the druid can turn into, and also, most especially, the DM to know what the druid can turn into.
Yeah.
This will also be a godsend for druid players because it means that you can prep your stat blocks that you can turn into in advance, rather than having that sort of looming idea that at any moment, do I need to dive into every monster book that's been published and quickly find the stat block that's right for any given situation. Again, like spell preparation, you're going to have your forms that you've prepared in advance, and then you know those are the forms that will potentially appear in play in that current session.
If that's not enough.
Yes, but wait, there's more. We did a lot on the Druid. So Circle of the Moon and Circle of the Land both appear here, along with the Circle of the Sea. The 4th subclass for the Druid is the Circle of the Stars, and for that we say just go to Tasha's,
right,
and you can find the subclass there. Circle of the Land and Circle of the Moon have received so many enhancements, they're almost new subclasses. So Circle of the Land, for instance, you now pick from a list of 4 land types each day, and you get the spells associated with that.
Right.
This is a huge change from 2014, where you chose a list of spells when you chose the subclass, and then that was your list forever. Now, every day, the Circle of the Land Druid can attune to a different land type and get a list of spells associated with it. There are some other really fun new things here. The Circle of the Land has a new way to use Wild Shape, where they can burn a use of Wild Shape to create a burst of sort of magical foliage and thorns in an area that can damage foes and heal a friend. The Healing Blossoms option that was in the previous Druid is not in the core Druid now. We essentially took it and moved it into the Circle of the Land, and then combined it also with the ability to damage some people in that area. Circle of the Land also is now going to be able to sort of call up a nature sanctuary in an area that provides protection to the Druid's allies in that area. Circle of the Moon, one of the big pieces of feedback we received in the last UA as well as to the 2014 version of it is people wanting the theme to be clearer. Circle of the Moon, lunar.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we have made that lunar theme a through line in this new version of the subclass. So this now means that when you're in beast form, you can call down the Moonbeam spell, for instance. We have made it so that you can change your beast form's damage into radiant damage as you strike people with the magic of the moon. We've also made it that in addition to you being able to get more temporary hit points as you go up in level when you turn into your beast forms, we've made it so you'll eventually be able to give flight to any of your beast forms, even if they don't have it, as you turn into this sort of lunar animal, the moon wolf, or,
when does that happen? When do I get to be Batwolf?
Well, you don't even have to sprout wings, because again, you are surrounded by the magic of the moon.
Right.
And then on top of that, we have a brand new subclass here, the Circle of the Sea. We've realized that over the years, as we've released different subclasses for this class focused on nature, we had a big gap, and that is oceans. And so we had fun designing the Circle of the Sea, which not only deals with some of the things you'd expect, water, being able to breathe underwater, swimming, that kind of thing, but also we've incorporated elements of storms, because so often, storms rumble over the sea. And so this is a druid of, the oceans and thunder, and I think is going to be a lot of fun for people to try out.
Fantastic, yeah. The Circle of Land in particular, that's so great tactically, because you can either be on theme and be in the Arctic and have cold-based spells, but smarter would be like, I'm throwing out Fireball and other fire-damaging spells, so tactically it makes more sense. But you can kind of move it to the theme that you're on.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and Circle of the Land is very much now quintessential nature magician.
Right.
And that was the lens that we looked through as we refined that subclass.